Good evening. I see lots of smiling faces, and actually I see some people still in their office working hard, and the rest of you are at home working hard, so it seems to be the way. What I wanted to do this evening is to just quickly run through some review stuff. The handbook, several of you said you had trouble finding the handbook. It is on the left drop-down menu on both my shell and Dr. Todd's shell. And if you open that and go to the very back, you will find the MLA handbook that was put together by one of the faculty members, and that sample school profile is what she used as the example of a paper. So that's a good place to read a sample of that. I want to make sure one more time that we know about the difference between an evidence and an artifact. And I think what I'm just about going to do is to say that when I talk about the 6 big things that you're doing in this year-long program, I think I'm going to just call them projects. Because you'll know what a project is, and it's one of the 6, because I don't want to confuse evidence and artifacts any more than it's already going to be confusing. So when I say something that is an artifact, I'll probably refer to it as documentation. So we're going to have projects and documentation, because I think that's probably as clear as we can get it. We haven't talked much about the log, but I do want to make sure that everyone is doing the log and you're starting to put those activities in from day 1. So go back to the beginning of the semester, the very first day, anytime you meet with the principal for this project, anytime you're meeting with your chair, with the people on your PLC, anytime you're doing anything of an administrative level, make sure you record it. You've got 80 hours that you must document, and we hope it's going to be more than 80 hours. If you go to a meeting in lieu of the principal, sometimes principals will say, would you go to this meeting for me? That's part of your administrative internship. Supervision, observing teachers, anything that is an administrative role, put it on there and make sure you fill out all the columns as you go, because you don't want to get to the end and have 240 hours of stuff that you've got to go back and figure out what competency should you put out beside it and all that. So just do it every day, or every other day, or just keep up with it so that it's okay. Does everybody have the copy of the log? It's in that manual also. And it used to be on page 89, but I think the manual may have had some edits. So just look in the index, find it, and go to it and pull it out. Or Dr. Todd may have put it in her source materials for you. But it's just, what day was it? What did I do? What competency did it fulfill? And how many hours was it? And at the end, end of each semester, it has to be signed by your site mentor. You want to make sure that the site mentor signs it, because if for some reason your site mentor is transferred to another school, or they take a job in Timbuktu, you need their signature. And if you get to the end of the program and you don't have a signature on the first 80 hours, the new principal may say, I can't sign a legal document that says you did that. You didn't do it with me, and I don't know. And then you'll be up a proverbial creek. So make sure that you take care of that log, because it is an essential piece of your portfolio that's going to be sent to Raleigh, because the state requires that you have those hours. So it's not something that Gardner-Webb can say, oh, we know you did the work, so we'll give you credit. It's not that. The state says we want to see it, so you gotta have it. Okay. As far as the AAPSL, and hopefully now that's the analysis and action plan for student learning, that's beginning to roll out of your mind when you see AAPSL. Don't get ahead of yourself. The AAPSL is just the piece of getting started. Don't put too much data in there. I know somebody asked, could they put data? Yes, if you want to put a little bit, a little smidgen, I say, you know. You put a little shaker of salt in your hand, and that's not what you put on your food. Then you take a little pinch and do just a little pinch. Well, if you do a little pinch, that's fine, but don't do too much data in task 1, because all that data needs to be in task 2. If you do it all in task 1, you're going to be doing it over in task 2. So save your time. And just remember that the whole idea is to do the analysis of the data, to target.
Okay, I gotta listen to this part. She's talking about.
Would you please mute somebody who is on the telephone, okay? Because we're seeing you on the telephone, okay? Thank you. Make sure.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to help Sally Schubert get on. My link wouldn't work either.
Okay, just make sure that you mute. Okay. There's the comprehensive analysis of the data, and then once you analyze the data, you're going to do the need, then you're going to research strategies, then you're going to do a plan, and then you're going to evaluate. So just make sure that you have all of that locked in your brain as to what you're doing. The first task, I hope all of you have started that first task, that you've researched the PLC background. Now, when you have, I've had several questions about how long should this paper be? Well, it's sort of the mini skirt version. It's long enough to cover the subject and short enough to keep it interesting. So try that one on and think about that. You've got 3 different resources that you minimally have to have. That should not be research source A, 3 sentences, research B, 3 sentences, and research C, 3 sentences. That is not what we're after. We want to know, what did the research say about setting up a PLC, why you would set up one, what its use is, what the best way to set it up, how to keep it together. You know, what does the researcher say makes a good PLC that's going to make a difference in your school? I don't want to say you should have at least 1 page on each source. I don't want to say that. It depends on how you write, but you need to cover the subject and make sure that you have a nice research base for what you're doing, because that research base is, you know, if you don't have the research, why would you waste your teacher's time doing it? So you want to have enough information that you can justify why it needs to be done. So make sure you get that. Then you got your permission. You're selecting your members. You're telling why you selected those members. You're talking about their expertise, and you're talking about how they're going to help you meet this purpose. Then you're going to hold the meeting. You're going to make sure that you may have told them the purpose of the meeting at the beginning and when you wrote your little email to them inviting them. But now you're going to hammer out a vision that everybody can buy into. You want to make sure everybody on that PLC is committed to doing this work with you. So that's the big deal. And that's all there is to one. So that's what I'm saying. You need to get that done, get it moving on. The school profile, as I said before, and I think Dr. Todd sort of supported that, make sure you do a good job with it to start so that, you know, you can pretty much count on having it from here on out. I remembered to tell you, I think D4, make sure that you have D4 in there. Your selection criteria, make sure that when you're selecting those people, you talk a little bit about why you would select these people, what kind of people you should select, and then talk about the people you did select so that that's clear. And the PLC plan, and the plan is just, we're going to look at this data, we're going to see where we're going, and you talk about what happens, what's going to happen, what's going to be the research, how we're going to look at it. We're going to look at the report card. We're going to look at, some kind of benchmarks if that's what you have. If you're doing primary, what kinds of benchmark data or assessment data would you have for the group that you're working with, and any kind of valid data that you have. And make sure you end with a clear vision of what does success look like for that PLC, okay? And that's all there is there. Then, if you've done a good job with 1, 2 is going to be the needs assessment, where you're going to just look at the information and collaborate on the analysis and come up with a specific need. 3, you're going to do the best practices research and then nail it down as to which best practices meet your need. And then you're going to do the action plan and the reflection. Now, hopefully you've looked at that rubric very carefully, because when you do your peer reviews, those peer reviews, you should be using that rubric just like the evaluator is going to use that same rubric for your work. So when you look at your peers' work, the rubric should be your guide, and make sure, for example, when you're grading by the rubric, you've got to have some documentation and discussion of the approval of the principal. So that means you've got to attach something that shows that. You've got to do the 3 sources, make sure, that you have 3 or more. And when it says develop, organize, and lead, well, the developing is when you're making those choices and you're looking at what the criteria will be for the membership in your PLC. Then when you organize it, well, you've got to invite them. You've got to do a schedule. Those are the things of organization there. And then actually leading it, conducting, and making sure there's a clear buy-in for the vision of your PLC. So, specific documentation. Make sure you have permission. Make sure you have some documentation that you invited those people and that they, that who, like if you send an email, it can have all the names at the top, it can do whatever, but you've got to document it. And either do a video, which is probably good, or just a picture of this group meeting, okay? Because you're going to be meeting in task 2, you can always do, another video. So if you do a video clip here, you can do an actual longer video later, just so that you are experiencing different types of technology. Okay, questions and answers on task 1. This is, I don't really think I'm going to be talking about task 1 anymore, because I'm expecting to start seeing papers soon. Task 1, any question?
I do. I just wanted to ask, as for task 1, well, first of all, the APA thing, I didn't hear where you said it was located, so I want to know where the APA handbook is located again.
Okay, if you look in the Blackboard shell, in the menu that drop down on the left side, there's a place that says handbooks. If you look, I think it's listed as the scale handbook, and that's because I believe it actually originated, the skeleton for our program originated at Harvard, and they, in order to use the handbooks, we developed our program sort of based on their program, so they required that we call it the scale program.
Okay.
Ministerial handbook. So that's the handbook. The very last thing in the handbook is that APA little section.
Okay, and then for the meeting, because I recorded my meeting today, where am I uploading that to? I probably should know this, but I forgot.
You're just, you'll save it as, as a document, and then you will attach it to the paper.
Okay.
All of these, that really is a good question, because what you're going to have at the end of the paper, you will have probably listed under the appendices. So you would have an appendix A. When you talk about the permission from the principal, that would be Appendix A. And so then Appendix A at the end of your document will be a link to that paper. Not a screenshot, not to Google Docs, to a Word document that is, the permission.
Okay.
So each of those things, if a good rule of thumb is, if you created it, it goes in the appendix. Is that helpful? Maybe to help. So the appendix is where you put, like if you created a survey, if you created a table that, not just a cut and paste table from the North Carolina report card or the advanced ed data. This would be something you create. Then you reference it in the paper. You say, I received this from the principal, this document, but you don't put the document there. You just cite it as being in the appendix, and then I can go look in the appendix and see it. Okay, so that's the way that goes. Did that help?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, a follow up on that. So I have an email from my principal saying that yes, that he's all for doing this PLC. But the only way that I can do that is to screenshot it.
No, you can scan it, put it into a Word document, and then attach the Word document.
So print it out, then scan it.
Well, yeah. Well, you don't have to physically have a paper. You can just turn it into a Word document, save it, and then attach it.
But it's still going to be a picture of it. It'll just be in a Word document.
It should give me the document. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It won't be a screenshot. You just attach it. Like if I was sending you a letter and I wanted to attach somebody else's paper, I would just go to the paper, go to my file and pull the document and paste it there at the end, and you click on it and it would open. The Word document should come.
Okay.
Yeah, work on it. Yeah, I see a hand.
So we are going ahead and having the meeting for task 1.
Pardon me, we're going ahead and having a meeting for what do you mean?
Yeah, we meet with our PLC group.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Well,
okay. Yeah, I have it set up for tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure.
Is to meet, you have to meet with them and you have to get them to agree.
Right.
This is the vision of what we want to do here.
Okay, and then this is due by Sunday.
Well, I'm hoping that, I'm looking over here and it says 9/13 is when it's due to me. I have right here, it says task 1 on that fall 18 internship Zoom schedule, right down through the middle. It says portfolio requirements timeline, and I'm looking at week 3 and it says task 1 due to discussion board review Dropbox 9/13. Everybody knows where I'm talking about? It's due to Dr. Todd on Sunday.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'm trying very hard to make sure that I get the paper after it's been through some review. But if somewhere down the line the schedule is changed, my schedule is not going to change, because my goal is to get you finished with a week to spare at the end, because you may need a week if there's a problem with either the paper or the portfolio, or your principal goes out of town and you didn't get the log signed. Okay, we just got to get all of our ducks in a row to make sure that we get to the deadline on time. So I'm just a real fuss budget about that. And I do that with all my college classes that I taught, actually when I was teaching the regular school term too. I tended to start day one and push to get people done, and then at the end, while everybody else is pushing you to get stuff that they forgot they were supposed to do, you've got time to do it because you're finished with me. So, just hang in there and try to, but mine is due 9/13.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 9/13. And of course, if you get done early, please turn it in, because I will start reviewing those papers the minute they come to my box. I will start evaluating them, because I've got almost 40 of you, and it's
Okay,
I want to
thank
get
you.
back to you soon, so give them to me as soon as you have them, but not until they're ready. Okay. Anything else with task one before we put that to bed? Yes, Ms. Kelly.
Yes. What time is the paper due to you?
9/13.
Yes. Do you have a time? Because I know Dr. Todd, everything's due by 9.
I tell you what, I tend to go to bed by 10:30. If there'll be a signature time on it, as long as it's turned in. I want a good paper. And if you've got a good paper, next week, send it to me. If you don't have a good paper until 2:00 in the morning on the 14th, send it to me at 2:00 on the 14th. Remember, this is a pass-fail class. I am not counting points here, honey. I am ready for you to be successful, and I will push you as hard as I need to push you. And if you need 5 more minutes, I'll try to wait until December 15th. December 15th, I'm putting my grades in at 8:00 because I'm on time. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I see hands.
Okay, Dr. Tillman, do
Yeah.
we need to wait until Dr. Todd reviews our paper before we turn it into you, or we can just go ahead and send it to you?
Well, now that's a real interesting thing. You're sending them to her on Sunday, and you're supposed to be doing your peer reviews, right?
Yes,
When are
ma'am.
you finished with your peer reviews?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
When are the peer reviews supposed to be done? Anybody?
With my clinical supervisor one today, and I asked him about that situation because I was confused if that was supposed to be done before the week 2 assignment was due for task 1. And he said that due date is really a time for us to have that paper finished, the review process come after. So I guess the period of time between us finishing Sunday and getting it to Dr. Tillman, that would be the time in between where we do a peer review. That was my understanding of what he said.
So, and what I said previously was, as soon as you can, go ahead, get your peer reviews done so you can get their feedback. Try to go ahead and schedule your group meeting so you get as much feedback as you can. And when you feel like you've done it, the last thing you need to do before sending it to me is review that rubric one more time. Do I have headings that show I've done all the things that are required? And if you have, get off of it. Send it to me and move on to 2, because 2 is harder. 3 is about as hard as 2. And then, There's always some problem with 4 because we can't quite seem to figure out what we want it to look like, but we'll get there. And then 5 is just doing competencies. So, this is the easy one. So it's good because you're going through the process, and it's going to be good, and you're going to see how it works. Okay. Any other question about 1? Going once? Going twice? We are done. Oh, Mr. Dubois, did you have a question?
No, ma'am.
Oh, I thought I saw a hand go up, and I thought, I'll take back my gone.
We're good.
That's okay. So, looking at what we're going to do about task 2. The main thing I want you to remember about writing this paper is that you are stretching these 5 tasks like they're clothes on a clothesline, just a timeline. Don't talk about something that hasn't happened yet in the process. So your paper must be in chronologic order. Okay, so if you can, when you outline your paper, no matter how sketchily you outline it, surely you're doing an outline. Once you get the outline, you need to write it, type it into your document, your Word document. And if you find something or you think about something that sounds good and you want to make sure you include it, go to that section, write it in. Don't put it just anywhere in the paper, because then it sounds scrambled and doesn't sound like a professional paper. So the timeline is really important. And when you're looking at, if it says collaboratively, that means you need to really focus on the fact that it was the PLC doing the work. You weren't huddling and doing it yourself and then having them sign off on it, for example. So, so what in my presentation tonight, I'm going to do here's what you do, and here's what the PLC does, and then here's what you're doing while the PLC is doing that. Just sort of try to look at it in that way. So what you're going to do is you're collecting all this data, all these data sets that you think, remember it says all available data. So that's a lot sometimes. And don't take it 100%. You don't have to use every little thing, but you do need a broad view of your school and the data.
Dr. Tillman?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I know that I probably should have realized this earlier, but basically because of the pace of this course, we're going to have to meet with our PLCs every week.
Probably.
Okay. Because my original schedule was
sometimes
every other week because I'm doing cross grade levels, and so it's hard to get them together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having to pull them out of class to meet with them cross grade level.
Okay, so you'll just have to be really organized, and when you get them set down, or maybe you can invite them to meet before school or after school and give them punch and cookies.
Yeah. But I could also do a Zoom conference with them, and that would count, correct?
Oh, that would be. And just think how good that would look as an attachment to the link to your Zoom meeting. Yes, that would be perfect.
Okay.
Everybody hear that possible technology use? Just Zoom with that group. And they'll learn something too, maybe, because they can set up a free Zoom account. Just go out to Zoom and set it up. You can only do for 40 minutes, but you can get it done in that time. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is describe the data collection process. Okay, the process. Well, that's just, what did you select? Who did you have to go to? Did you have trouble getting it? Your principal said, go see the guidance counselor. If you are the guidance counselor, just reach in your drawer and pull it out, right? It just depends on what your position is and how you have to get the data. I will say, South Carolina people, I think you have more trouble getting your data than people do in North Carolina, but you can get it. they will, and it's out there that it's the advanced ed, right? And you also have a couple of other documents that you can pull. So you're just going to describe the process, data collection process. Then you need to decide how you're going to present that. Well, you can do it quickly with a PowerPoint. I don't know if everybody can bring, if all your teachers have their laptops or whatever, maybe they can come and they can all download the data, but it's probably better if you do something like a Prezi or a PowerPoint or something where you can organize what you want to show them. And basically, you're just in this section, what is it you're planning to do? What is your plan for identifying the most pressing need? So you've got to have all that data. And make sure that in that section where you're talking about the process, include a rationale behind being collaborative. Why is it that you need to have all these people there in a PLC? Why can't you just go ahead and say, I can see what it says and I'm going to tell them to do it? Okay, you know why. And if not, when you get the PLC research done, you'll know why. But you need to put that in that paper when you're talking about the collection process. You know, why are you even doing it like this? That's an important piece of that. And remember, as I said a while ago, it says the candidate will research all available data. Now, even though you're not going to be, scrutinizing every little thing, you're not going to just go on and on about the data, but you need to really be heavy on the data. Then you need to convert, after you've got the data, as I said, you convert that into some kind of a presentation format so that you can share it with your PLC members. They're going to analyze with you. Now, you've probably analyzed it already, but you're not going to go in there and say, okay, here it is, and this is what it says, and this is what we're going to do. That is not what you do. You have to present the data, and you have to let them analyze the data, and you have to let them come up with where are the needs. What's going on here? What is it that we need to be working on? And you may have 2 or 3 different things that pop out at people. And so if that comes up in your meeting, of course, list those things. We saw that across our data, we are having trouble in science, we're having trouble in math, problem solving, we're having trouble in comprehension. Just list all that stuff that they're saying, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this. Well, then you have to think about, well, we can't do all of those. There's no way that you can address everything, because if you do, you'll address nothing. Take it from me, that's really true. So you then have to prioritize, and that doesn't take long. Your teachers, because you've chosen good people, they're going to look at the data and they're going to say, okay, maybe this is our number 1 priority. So that's what you're doing. And you're probably going to have to get to the disaggregated data. You're not going to be able to use school-wide data. You might put the school-wide data up, but you're going to have the disaggregated data in order to pull out where the key problems are. Okay, is everybody any question about that? Yeah. Okay, so once you've got the disaggregated data and you can identify those problems and you sort of prioritize and say, okay, we think this group of competent professional educators, we decided that the best thing for our school will be to address this particular problem. Okay, so you identify the need, and you're really that chronologic idea of starting and coming down to that identification. Okay, that's what you're going to do. You're getting ready, and you can cut and paste from the advanced ed. You can cut and paste from the North Carolina report card. That's fine. because you have a title for the chunk, the graph, or whatever data that you're pulling, and you'll put a note under it that says what it is. So just do that APA thing so that people know this is where it came from. You didn't create that. And since you didn't create that, you'll cite it, and it will appear in your reference section, the North Carolina report card or the advanced ed. That'll appear, and you're just pulling whatever you need from that document. You are putting it in your paper. Okay, just cut and paste. You don't have to reconstruct unless there's something really different going on. I would just cut and paste and use what you see. Okay, and I think I've told you before, if you in those documents, you'll see a comparison of your school with the district, with other schools, with the state. So just go ahead and show those comparisons, and in your narrative, you talk about all of that when you get ready to write the paper. But right now, getting ready to sit down with that group, you want to have all of that in some kind of a presentation form. Okay, that's what you do. That's the prep. Preparing, what is it? The prepared environment, right? So when they come in, you've got it ready. You give them the agenda, or they come with an agenda if you gave them one before. And here's the presentation. And then the PLC, they're going to isolate the data that is most important. And that's going to be something that you'll pull that graphic at the end when you're saying, here's the most important part. You might even repeat that so that it's right there with the recommendation. And then while all that is going on, you're going to record the session and save it for use in your portfolio as evidence, because that'll make an excellent piece of evidence for you. And if you are going to do a Zoom of that meeting, that also will be a good thing to attach to the paper, the link, and you can just talk about that in the paper, that your group, because they had no common planning time, which you definitely will address later in the APTL. If there's no planning time, we need some work on that. So, but you just say there was no planning time, and so our PLC agreed that we would meet at such and such a time on a Zoom conference, and attached is the link to the Zoom, and you attach it. And since it's something you created, where does it go? In the appendix. That's right. Okay. So what kinds of questions did all of that conjure in your mind? Questions about task 2? No questions in task 2? Oh, yes. Okay. Mr. Dubois.
Okay, can you hear me?
Oh, I can.
Okay. Now we can also get our information from like the South Carolina report card as well too. About
Well, it's very interesting. I've had people tell me there wasn't any such thing as the South Carolina report card, and the only thing they had access to was something called advanced ed. Now, is that what you call the report card, or is that an additional option?
Because I know like our website, they have it like districts, and then they'll have it by school and everything, demographics, the numbers, and all that.
That's what you want right there. Yeah, that's all that information, and it's there, and you can do a cut and paste. Just a completely aside, that I said I wasn't going to speak of anything related to task 1, but if you were talking about the demographics and things of your community, some people have used information from the Chamber of Commerce or from the census.
Yes,
So there's, that's a good source to really put a nice picture of your school and your community when you're doing that school profile. So, it's easy to find, and it really makes the paper look sharp. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Just want to know.
Yeah, that's great. The better the data, the better this is going to be, and the easier it is because you can just pinpoint what's going on a lot easier. Okay, what else? Anything else?
So it's okay, Dr. Tillman, to have some of those, the like when we do our school profile task 1, I have some of those, what did you just call it? The report card, North Carolina report card. I have a graph or whatever I copied already in my school profile, but you're saying we put it in for task 2 also.
I wouldn't put a graph in task in the school profile. It should just be a narrative, and you can just say, such and such a percentage of the unemployment in our, in our community, or such and such a poverty rate, or just give the percentages, and then cite where it came from at the end of the paragraph, unless you're doing direct quotes of, I can't remember what APA says for the number of words you have to put in a string before you have to use the quotation marks. And I think I said to you before, if it has quotation marks around it, you must put the page number to be APA compliant. You can summarize, you can do all that and cite the document and the year and all that. But if you put quotation marks around a statement, you must give the page number, or it won't be a complete citation and it'll show up as wrong. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions about that, the task 2? Okay. So looking at the paper, I've got a list of things that I want to make sure you think about, and I labeled it paper issues. One more time, chronologic order. Now, I say that, I said it, I bet it 4 or 5 times already, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing me say chronologic order, but I will tell you, out of 40 people, there will be at least 4 that will have the paper written just like stream of consciousness, and whenever they think of it, that's when they write it, and it's going to sound like you threw spaghetti against the wall. So think chronologically so that it makes really professional sense. This is what I did, then this is what I did, and then this is what I did, and then this is what happened, and then we did this. Okay. Now, put headings and possible notes before writing the paper, so you don't leave out things. Go through. We've talked about outlining. You look through the rubric, hopefully, to see what that looks like. You've read the prompt, so make sure that you have good outlines. Then write under each outline what it is that you're presenting, so that it makes sense. Charts, narratives, it's a style issue, but make sure you do APA. And I think most professors, and quite frankly, I do not care as long as you have a correct narrative and you provide the data and the data is cited. But most professors prefer that you do the narrative and then present the chart, graph, or whatever. Okay, so you're going to discuss it, tell them what they're going to see, and then show them. Okay, and then tell them the next thing they're going to see and show them. Okay. Usually the narrative comes before. Don't use the names or provide data that shows students' names or student numbers. We've talked about that a little bit. Just redact that information, or if you can delete it, that's fine too. Make sure, I know that Dr. Todd said it was okay to do teacher, Ms. Smith, Ms. Jones, and Mr. Kloppenheimer, but make sure that you use teacher A, B, and C, because You need to get in the habit of doing that when you start writing articles and somebody says, oh, you should publish that. You don't want to have to go back and rewrite and redo charts and all that. You just want to do it right to start with. The 5th grade math teacher, the counselor, the administrator, the principal, the PTA president, all those people have titles, or you can number them or letter them. And when you are talking, the letter, the word I does not appear in this paper. Okay. You are the candidate. Do not say, I did this, and for heaven's sakes, don't say, I think this, because right now you are just reporting the facts, ladies and gentlemen, just the facts. You're reporting the research. That is not your thinking. You are developing information from the research. You're not making it up. So it's not, we think this is the best. No, the data say this is the best. And the candidate presented the data. So make sure you're the candidate, you're not the I. Okay. Discuss subgroups and demographic information carefully, because that's probably where you're going to find some of your greatest needs, in those subgroups. Okay. And again, I wrote it, so I'm going to say it again. If you created it, put it in the appendix. I've had people that tried to put all of those, the things they developed. If they did a survey, they put it in the paper, and it makes the paper really nice and long and fluffy, but it's not correct. You just tell what it is and about it. You cite it as appendix and put its correct letter and put it in the appendix. Okay? Questions about the paper before we talk about competency?
One question I have is, when you mentioned using teacher A and teacher B. Mm-hmm. In task 1, we have to list the people that we selected for the PLC. Are we still listing teacher A and teacher B? Or are we listing?
Or you could say the 5th grade teacher,
okay,
guidance counselor, the AP in charge of curriculum and instruction, or the curriculum facilitator, and the candidate.
Okay.
The team. Yeah, you just avoid putting the names. Okay, even of your principal. Yeah. Okay, and even when you're talking about the school profile, you might Ms. Johnson might have been the principal for 20 years, and everybody loves Ms. Johnson. So you say, Ms. Johnson has been the principal of this school and has held it, to high standards, yada, yada, yada. But that's, no, the principal has been, here for 20 years, and whatever you want to say, but just leave out the names. Okay, good question. Other questions about 2? You've got 2. Okay, competencies. Now, I sent you a strange piece of paper. Well, actually, it's 2 pieces of paper. And it was titled Competency Record. And I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. You have it, right? I'm seeing heads shake. That's good. All right. That I would advise, it's not a requirement, but this is how I keep up with your competency record. Because what happens with the Competency Folio is that when they come to visit you, I think they actually do help you set it up. But if not, there's a little video that'll show you how to set it up, and we'll do that later because we're not into competencies, except I want you to be thinking about them. So this is how I keep up with it. The competencies, when you go in there, it says, for this competency, you must have a submission for the AAPSL and the AAPSL, and one open-ended. Okay, so for every competency, you have to have 3 submissions. And it tells you 2 of the 3 where they have to come from. So Dr. Todd is telling you, okay, you need to do all 21 of these competencies. And actually, that is really true. But what I have done is I have gone into, and I've done this with every class, there are some that you are going to have to do the open-ended submission, because when you get in there, for example, let me get my sheet, because my eyes are old and I have to look, because it needs little print, so you'd be able to have some space to write. Under communication, it says AAPSL and SIAT. That's the School Improvement Action Plan, and you don't do that until the last project of the year. Okay, so that means you'll be able to do, you'll be expected to do a submission where it says evidence 1 required, and it says under there AAPSL. You will, there'll be a submission where you can record what you did, just so you remember that you did that. But when you get to the AAPSL, the second of these projects this semester, you will notice it doesn't say AAPSL, it says SIAT. So you're going to have to, when you get to the 6th project, you're going to have to put something in from there. So that means in order to do one for, to complete the communication requirement, you're going to do the next project, you'll have to do an AAPSL open-ended. Okay. Now, that makes absolutely no sense to you. I can see eyes going icy for me. But look on down to, let's see, let's find one. How about conflict management? That says AAPSL, evidence required, AAPSL, evidence required. So you'll do an evidence for this project. The end of this next project will be the AAPSL. You'll do one there. And somewhere out in the future, when you do something that you think is really good about conflict management, when you've managed conflict somehow and you're proud of the way it turned out, you'll do an open-ended evidence. And it can be from anything. It can be from some class activity. You may have a discussion board, for example, that deals with conflict management. You might really think you did a good job with that, and you can put that as your 3rd evidence under open-ended. Okay? Now, look at creative thinking. You've got both the AAPSL and the AAPSL. So you'll do both of those requirements this semester, and somewhere in the future, you'll do an open-ended when you feel like you've done something that was really creative, or maybe you've solved a problem in a creative way, or you've set up something in a creative way, and you'll enter an open-ended submission. Okay. Now, the reason I'm concerned that you understand about open-ended is there is a list of open-ended requirements. And in order for you to have addressed every competency this semester with at least 1 entry in each one, because remember, that's where we're trying. We're trying to get 21, and there's 21 competencies. So you have to have 1 for every one. If you go down, look at customer focus. Do you do either one of those this semester, the requirements? I want to see head shaking because that's going to be the way I can tell if you understand. You got it, Lori. Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. I'm seeing head shaking. No, because it says the first requirement is the OMA and the second requirement is the skip. Where is APTL or APSL? Well, you must make an open-ended submission for this semester. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, maybe you'll make some kind of mark so you'll remember that, right? Okay, what about environmental awareness? Look at that one, environmental awareness. Can you make a submission there as a requirement 1 or 2? No, because you've got to do the CAP and the SIAP. You've got to have space to do them. So any submission this semester has to be open-ended. Okay.
Where's this document at again?
This document is, I attached it to the invitation, and there was a short agenda and this document.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So what about global perspective? This semester, what are you going to have to do there?
Open-ended.
Open-ended, good job. Okay. The next one, how about judgment?
Open-ended.
Yep, that's got to be open-ended. What about personal ethics?
Open-ended.
All right. What about, look at responsiveness. Oh, I've got to turn my paper over. That was my...
Open-ended.
Okay, so when we get to responsiveness, it's the OMA and the skip and the SIP. So you've got to do an open-ended this semester. That's right. Okay, what about results orientation?
Open-ended.
Yeah, that's got to be an open-ended because you're doing the SIP and the CAP. So the only place to put your requirement this semester is open-ended. Okay, what about sensitivity?
Open-ended.
OMA and CAP are in those 2 required spots. So it's this semester's got to be open-ended. What about technology?
APSL.
Okay, the technology. Instructional, look at instructional technology.
Open-ended.
It's the OMA and the SIAP, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to have to be open-ended. And notice that's instructional. Okay, so...
Dr. Tillman, when you look at, for example, conflict management,
okay.
one of them is the APSL and one of them is the APTL.
Uh-huh.
Well, since we have 3 semesters and 2 of our evidences will be in 1 semester, I know open-ended will be in 1 semester. Will we have to have a 4th one for the 3rd semester?
You'll just add extra ones. But these 3 are required, and I keep track of the 3 that are required. But if your future professor says, I want you to do, whatever they require, you need to do.
So you could actually have 4 evidences.
You could have 4 or 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What I'm concerned about is making sure you have 3 good ones and they're done correctly, because that's what the state requires.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I think I missed something. I understand that if it says APSL or APTL, then we have to do that particular thing during that time.
Mm-hmm.
But open-ended, can you explain again what that means? Does that mean anytime?
That means anytime. That's exactly right. But since she is requiring that you do one, you're not going to tell her whether it's open-ended or it's a requirement. This is in the portfolio. Remember that task 5 for your paper is a completely different assignment than your competency folio. in her assignment, you're just doing the reflection on each of these that
Okay.
she has required. When you get to the competency folio, you're targeting one specific good thing that you want the State Department to know that you know about communication or conflict management or whatever.
Okay.
Okay. And you'll have to put evidence in your portfolio. You don't attach evidence to task 5. Task 5 is just a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the folio is, well, we're going to talk specifically about what you put in the folio, but I'm just wanting to make sure that the one last one that we still need to look at is the visionary, which is the last one there. And so what is the visionary? You've got the CAP and the SIAP, so it's got to be open-ended, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we'll talk about this some more, and you don't have to finish it tomorrow, so it's okay if your head's a little cloudy, okay? But I just want you to start thinking about this, because as you go through, you want to be thinking about, well, what's the best thing for me to write about for this particular competency? And I think it's really important that you think about the competencies. For example, in communication, well, you're going to have the emails, right? And so that's a possibility. When you have change management, well, it's probably too early to do the one on change management. But when you get to the task where you're doing the action plan, doesn't that show that you're managing change when you have a document that says, here's the plan for moving us forward in this area? So that's when you'll do this. That's why you don't really do these until later. You'll notice I have to keep referring to my document, but the document says that we are going to, in week 8, it says AAPSL competency folio submissions made with narrative, documentation. It's due 10/19. Now, that's because that's when you finish the AAPSL. So when you finish the paper and you've done your reflection, that's actually when you go over and put in the requirements for the competency folio that you see that you've met. And I tried to go through, and you can do this, just run down that list and find where the AAPSL is. And you'll find that I have them here on my list. It's communication, change management, conflict management, delegation, systems thinking, technology, creative thinking, organizational ability, personal responsibility for performance, and time management. When you look at this document and go down and find where you see AAPSL, those are the places you'll find it. So that's what I'm looking for on 10/19, for those to be done. Excuse me.
Dr. Tillman.
Yes.
So let's look at ethics for a moment. With personal responsibility for performance, would a request for secure data be an example, or
excuse me,
is that?
No, it's personal responsibility for the performance of students.
Okay.
Okay, it's from that perspective. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the ethics part, when you the one that says personal ethics, that would be the confidentiality related to data. Okay, so somewhere down the line that would come into play. Okay, let's look at the bottom. It's on the second page of that document that you have. And boy, something got a hold of me. I have a couple of things written down there that I think will help you. It says competency submission format. Now we're going to go over this again, but I wanted to go over it tonight so that you understand what's required out there in the future. Because if you know what's required in the future, you can be thinking about it all along. And when you get there, it won't hit you like a brick wall. Each one of these submissions needs to appear under the definition. When you go into a competency folio, it will tell you the name of the competency, it will define the competency, and it will tell you which of the projects are required. It'll say like AAPSL, APTL, open-ended. So for every competency, when you get online, it's going to say what the two required are and that there's an open-ended requirement. So it's going to tell you, when you get in there, you can see exactly what is required. But I've had students in the past, for some reason, to delete the definition. Leave the definition alone. I didn't tell people that for a while, and all of a sudden people started deleting it. So now I have to say, don't delete the definition, because you need to leave that. But right under that, that's where you put your submissions. And what you do is you put whatever the project is. Like you put the AAPSL. And notice I put AAPSL, I underlined it, I bolded it. Then do your narrative. I say the narrative belongs here. Tell exactly how you demonstrated the competency under consideration. And I would say 4 to 6 sentences. Some students can do these beautiful paragraphs and they're really good, and that's fine. But you don't have to put the world. Now, some professors just say cut and paste from your task 5. And if you have a good description of what you feel is your best submission for that competency, and it's a good submission, then do cut and paste. I mean, I'm not against cutting and pasting, but I want to have 4 to 6, 7 good sentences that describe how you demonstrated that competency. And of course, it all depends on the example that you use. Okay. Include a statement. Now, here's a technology requirement, because every competency needs to have a technology requirement. And so, include a statement for any technology competencies related to this narrative, and it doesn't have to be what I wrote there. That's just an example. I don't want everybody to have the same thing, but I want them to write a statement that says something like, the work done demonstrates the competency, the work doing this competency also demonstrates digital competencies. And I want you to bold digital competencies. No matter how you write this, you should see digital competencies bold and underlined. Through use of, and you put the tool that you used. Like if you're doing the PowerPoint for your PLC, you would say something like, the work done demonstrates the competency, also demonstrates digital competency through use of PowerPoint, that's naming the tool, in creation of the data presentation for the PLC in task 1. That's the product. Add any other significant digital information related to the product. If it's something that you're demonstrating later on in some other project where it's you're doing professional development and you're showing some kind of special new strategy, talk about that and tell what it is. Make a statement as to your level of proficiency with the particular digital tool. For example, if it's the first time you've done a Zoom conference for real, out in the real world, the ones you do with us aren't really real world. We accept all. But when you first do your first Zoom conference out there in the real world, you probably don't feel like a pro. So it's okay to say that. This is the first time I've used this digital tool, but I can see that I can use it in the future doing whatever. Okay? Now, this first semester, people are expecting to see that you are exploring some things. But as you go through the program, we hope by the time you get to your third semester, you're going to be saying, I've been the Zoom master several times, and I've Zoomed with my whatever group, and I feel very confident in doing this, and would use this as a way to communicate with people that geographically are too far for me to communicate with, or whatever. Okay, so you want to show growth. So that's why technology-wise, you might do an email, for example, first semester, but you sure wouldn't use an email for third semester, because you're way beyond hopefully email being your prize possession when you get to the third semester. Okay, so I'm thinking, and under the last thing to do is to draw a line under that whole submission. Because when you come back to do the submission for the AAPSL the next project, and you have to do the teacher, the one on teacher enrichment, empowerment and leadership, we want to start new, and you'd put the AAPSL underline bold, and you'd write your narrative about that, and you'd write if there's a competency about digital technology, and then when you finish, you'll draw a line under that, and then you'll do your open-ended. Well, if the first one you're doing is open-ended, that's fine. Just write open-ended, but put fall, so you remember. And they, of course, then would be chronologically listed: the first submission, the second submission, the third submission. Okay. Does that seem to begin to make sense? I hope you will cling to that little piece of paper, because if you record what you did, it doesn't have to be a lot. Just sort of make a little note for yourself as to what you submitted. I think there's enough room for me. I write just a little note to myself what you did so I can keep up with it. Now, you submit those, and I go in. When you go in, you make the submission, and there's a place up on the upper right where you can request comment, and you'll choose my name from the list. You'll request comment. TaskStream, TaskStream will send me an email that says, this student has sent you something to look at. So I go in and I look at it, and I type a comment. And the comment's either going to be something like, this meets the standard, or wow, this is a really neat thing, I'm glad I read this. Or the submission narrative doesn't match the documentation. And so you'll get a note back from TaskStream saying that you got a comment, and then you'll go back on and maybe make a better submission documentation. So by the time we get to the end, you'll have 21 submissions done from these two papers. Okay? Does that, everyone? I don't see smiles. That makes me feel bad. Okay.
We're all overwhelmed.
It is overwhelming, and that's why I'm telling you now, because we'll be talking about it more. And I don't want you to worry about it, because once you get in, how many of you have had your CC1 come, and have they helped to get the competency folio set up?
My CC1 came, however, I'm not in task stream yet. Or don't have access.
That was my case also. I set it up, but I set it up the night that Dale, Miss Dr. Lamb mentioned it on the town hall meeting, and I couldn't get in because I wasn't set up, and he emailed me and said that it hadn't been set up yet, and I said, oh, and it still hasn't been set up yet. So.
Well, and so don't worry about it, because it's going to happen, and it's not a hard thing to do. It's just a matter of going in there and clicking here and clicking there and writing the name of what you're going to call this portfolio and hitting a button, and all of a sudden there it all is. So, it's not a hard thing. Don't panic about it. But I think the more you look at it, the more it'll make sense. And when we get there, it'll all be okay. And the reason I set the deadline right after you finish the AAPSL is so that you can go ahead and do those while it's fresh in your mind, and you remember where things are, you know what you call documents and all that. And then you'll be starting on the next project, which is the empowerment and leadership section. And then that means at the end of the program, at the end of the semester, you will only have those requirements to get done. Because if I give you till the end, you'll wait till the end, and then you'll all be panicking. And I don't want panic. I don't want you to do that. Okay.
So Dr. Tillman will really have more than 21, because some of them will fall under AAPSL and the AAPSL.
Well,
that we have, but the ones that are required for both.
Well, when you look at the AAPSL, there are only 4 requirements for the AAPSL. If you just sort of look down that list, the AAPSL requires conflict management, creative thinking, dialogue and inquiry, and emotional intelligence. Okay, so between those and the ones for the AAPSL, the rest will be open-ended, and you'll end up with the close to the right amount, I think.
Okay.
8, 9, 10. I'm counting. I think you'll be 3 over, if I counted correctly, but I was counting quickly. So, but it's not a hard task. It's just a task you need to do. So as you're going through this, you can think about, oh, when I get to doing that portfolio thing, I think this is what I'm going to be talking about. So it just doesn't hit you cold at the end. Okay, so any questions we have? I don't want to answer a lot of questions about the competencies, because you're not having to do them anytime soon. I just wanted to get it out there to you, let you see what it is, and try to help you understand the fact that it is out there. It's not hard to do. There's a format you can follow. And when you get through, you'll have 63 things that you can talk about when you go into an interview. When you go into an interview and they say, what are your strengths? If you have written 63 different narratives about how you have developed the skills, the competencies by which an administrator is evaluated. These are straight from the evaluation instrument for administrators. So you just, right there, you have all the documentation to think about. Just go back and think, well, what did I do in the AAPSL? What did I do in the AAPSL? And just talk to them about the competencies that you've developed. because you're going to become so familiar with these competency terms that no matter how frightened you are in that interview, you're going to remember what you wrote. And so it's a wonderful thing, because this forces you to think about, how am I growing as an administrator? How am I developing the competencies? You're learning the knowledge and the skills in your classroom work. But to have these competencies, this is the demonstration. And so everything you write in that portfolio is about how you demonstrated these skills. And so that's your interview right there. And you can you can even talk to them about your, they always want to know, well, what is your weakness? What is it you need to develop? Well, when I was doing whatever competency you want to list, I did this and this and this, and I still wish that I could get a little better in that. Okay, it's not bad to say you need to improve. We all need to improve. I wish I didn't shake my head around so much when I lecture. When I was doing professional development, I tried so hard to keep my head still, you just can't imagine, because it just wants to flop around, and I don't like it when I see it. So anyway, I hope you'll video yourself somewhere close down the line, because then you'll see how you look when you teach, and you can start looking at that presentation of professional self. Okay. Any questions before we close? I've held you much too long, and I am so sorry.
I have one. When I asked last night Dr. Todd, she seemed to be against using the template. But, the one that's provided for the AAPSL, it has like the highlighted areas where you add your text. The red text is a reminder. The all text in black stays. And the text in black is the purpose and what the task is and all that kind of stuff. So is that true that for your paper, all of that needs to be in there and then you just add at the end, or is it just one cohesive paper and we don't even need to worry about all that?
Well, you can do it either way. I have a lot of students that will go in and they will, maybe I should start by saying this. When we run it through Turnitin for the originality, we set the cutoff to include including in your paper the description of the task and the prompts.
Okay.
So if you have descriptions and tasks, the prompt tasks in there, that is not going to put you over the limit for originality.
Okay.
Okay, because that's an important piece. So that's why it's we don't want you to put, for example, too much of that in the paper, because if you do, then you're going to end up with a higher percentage.
Okay.
We don't want you to do that. But there's no problem if you want to use that. I just ask that people develop their own outline. You can check it against that maybe. And if you feel like you've left something out or you need to restructure, but in your work as an administrator, you have to design things. You have to figure out how to outline tasks. You have to figure out what you're going to present to your faculty. So don't depend on someone else to give you an outline. So I would say if you want to use that, use it as something to check against. Design your own, then look at that and say, oh, yeah, maybe that's a better way to organize that, because then you've learned something.
Mm-hmm. Well, my main thing was the format. Like, do you want the task, the description of the task in there? I mean, is that what you want, or do we just write it as a flow as far as the whole paper and not include all of that stuff? When you're saying we could do either one.
Either one is acceptable.
Okay.
I'm just saying don't do more than
mine was more of a formatting question than it was. I mean, obviously all of my stuff will be original. It's not that at all. It was a formatting question. Do you want the tasks there or not? And so you're saying it doesn't matter as long as we address it within the paper.
And and it's fine to put it in, but I want you to be in charge of your paper. And if you then compare what you're doing with that format and you find something you want to change, that's great, because you've learned something and you can sort of think about, well, why is it designed that way rather than how I thought it should be? Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah. Any other questions or concerns? I'm really thinking that you folks are going to do well. You ask good questions. And you look like you're really on task. I have had some students in the past that watched TV while we were on. They had their TV set up over here, and they had their little laptop here. And so, help each other and work hard, and the reward will be out there. Okay, anything? Okay, let's see. I think they are getting us a little, I can't tell. Miss Kelly, was there something that let's see. See, I don't usually do the chats. I see a lot of chats over here now. Okay, I think they're getting us a little too prepared. Okay. I don't want to overwhelm you. I really don't. So peace be with you. Give me a call, email me. I want to make it easy. And I think I can make it easy by making sure you know where you're going. So when you get there, you don't go, oh my, I didn't know I had to do that, and go back and have to do it over. Okay. I'll see you later. Come Sunday or give me a call. Okay, bye-bye. Let's see, I need to find that little button. That's
good night.
Good night.
Dr. Tillman.
Yes. Oh, I just hit the button. Yeah, go ahead.
I do have a question. And so I am
It's trying to cut me off because I have my finger on the button.
Hold on, let me find it. So I am in section 4, group 3. And there's one other person that I've been communicating with that is in the group that's on here. So how do we get in touch with the other two?
I'm not sure what the problem is. You have email. You don't have email? I mean.
Yeah, but I haven't talked to them or heard from the other two. There's 4 of us in a group, but 2 of us have communicated.
Well, if those people are out there, you need to start communicating. So I can't make them do it, but they sure need to be. So okay. I would say, well, Dr. Todd's not going to be there. How about emailing me and tell me?
Supposed to be 2 peer reviews, but if there's only 2 of us in a group.
That's exactly right. So how about emailing me and let me know about it? Because
I'll try to email them again, and then if not, I'll let you know.
Email me, and I will email them. They might respond to me. Okay, bye-bye.